So, welcome to another episode of Paranormal Legends podcast. As always, I am your host, James, aka Assassin. You already know. Um, so this episode I have something very, very important. Well, I deem very important. So, first and foremost, we had, and I'm gonna mention this again. We had a another series of storms. And as I've told you before, and if this is your first time checking out the podcast, when you have thunderstorms or any electrical storms or something like that, it boosts the energy in the atmosphere, okay? It boosts the electromagnetic fields, which means, excuse me, which means spirits, entities, or whatever the case may be, have more energy to pull from. So it's a greater chance that paranormal things may happen or whatever. Just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. Um, so if you're part of the Facebook group, you will see a video that one of the followers posted that she sent to me as well. Um, the orange light in the sky when the whole lightning storm was going on and everything like that was pretty compelling. It was. But what I'm gonna do for y'all this episode, I am gonna teach you how to know if your house is haunted. Okay, the signs of a haunted house. Cause I really feel like everybody should know this. And hopefully none of these signs apply to you. But if it does, just be careful. Okay. So keep in mind, if you have a new house, like a brand new house, right? Then a whole lot of times you wouldn't have to worry about it being haunted unless you built it on some sacred ground or like just a place that has bad energy, that has had bad things and events occur over the time. But for people who rent homes and everything or buy old homes that was originally built around the 40s and the 50s, then yeah, it's the 25, maybe 30% chance that your house is haunted. And these are the steps to tell if you are staying in a haunted house. So, first one, items go missing. So say for instance, if you're sitting there watching TV one day and you sit the remote on the arm of the couch, right? You go to the kitchen, you go get something to drink, and then that remote is in a different place. If you are home alone and that occurs, that's sign of poltergeist activity actually. Or alright, check this out. So say for instance you come home from work, you put your keys on the counter in the kitchen, or you hang them up by the door. However you do it. You go to take a shower, you come back, and you're the only one in the house, right? You stay by yourself, you're the only one in the house. And say for instance you want to make a run to the store for some reason after you shower. You go back to get the keys, and the keys are nowhere to be found. They are not where you put them. They're in some odd place or whatever that you would never put your keys. Sign of a poltergeist. You might have a ghost there, buddy. Just saying, you might have a ghost. Okay. So, number 2, mysterious noises. Now, mysterious noises can be footsteps, disembodied voices. So, for instance, the very first story I told, well, actually, it was the second story I told. And you remember how she was laying down and she heard footsteps. No, sorry. It wasn't footsteps. She heard marbles rolling on the floor, but she had carpet in her room, right? Bam. That's considered a mysterious noise. Or how when I told y'all about my sleep paralysis and I would hear footsteps, but I had carpet in my room. Mysterious noises. I mean, it's so many things. I mean, it can be knocks. It can be knocks at the door. It can be like, it can just be bangs. It can be a whole lot. Anything out of the ordinary, that's what you can consider a mysterious noise. Okay, number 3, items break often. So if you're having a situation where items just fly off the counter, or they just tip over for no reason, or you having stuff fall off the wall and there's no earthquakes or anything like that, that's the sign of a haunting. Any poltergeist activity is the sign of a haunting. Remember that. Say it with me. Any poltergeist activity is the sign of a haunting. Okay, now, number 4, we have electrical manipulation. Okay, so that's classified as your TV turning on and off by itself. Um, your clock going counterclockwise instead of clockwise. Lights going on and off. Just anything electrical. Toys moving by themselves. The little touch me, little singing joints or whatever. Those going off by themselves. Electrical manipulation. Trust me, you'll know when you see it. Okay, number 5, personality changes. Now this is the biggest one. If you have somebody who is bubbly, majority of the time they're bubbly, they're always joking around, and for like a week straight, they are just not themselves. They're looking real melancholy, they're looking real bland, and it's just like they just become a whole different person. That could be a sign. That could be a sign of an attachment. And attachments are worse than a haunting, to be honest. But that's the sign of an attachment. So basically what's happening is whoever that person is channeling that spirit's emotions. Right? So that's why even in the movies, if you pay close attention to the movies, usually the ones that's being affected the most are exhibiting what the spirit is feeling. Sadness, dread, anger, just it's so many emotions. But yeah. Okay, 6, strange bodily sensations. Now, this goes from everything to goosebumps to feeling cold spots to muscle spasms just out of nowhere. You feel me? Usually when the spirit is present, electromagnetic energy is present, and your hair will lift up on your arms and on your neck, and you will feel like this. You'll feel the static electricity in the air. So that's a sign of a haunting. Okay. Number 7. Now this right here is the sign of a haunting and a demonic attachment. Okay. Number 7, unexplained scratches, bites, and bruises. Now, when you have scratches, bites, or bruises, that's usually the sign of a malevolent spirit. Okay? This spirit ain't nothing to play with. This spirit means business. This spirit is only focused on inflicting pain to the living. So, usually, if it's scratches, you might have 2, you might have 4, you might have 5, But if you get 3 scratches, that's a demonic sign. That's the sign of a demonic haunting, because all demons do, they mock the Trinity. Okay, so any pairs of 3, that's the sign of a demonic haunting. So you want to get help ASAP. You want to get help. You want to cleanse your house and everything. Bite marks too. And believe it or not, y'all might think it's some bull, but people really get bit out here by spirits. And I'm talking not just feeling the sensation of getting bit, but actually seeing the teeth marks imprinted on their skin. like it's real. Um, you waking up without knowing how you got a bruise on your arm or on your stomach or something like that or on your back, and you know you haven't fell. You feel me? That's the sign of a haunting, usually malevolent. Okay, number 8, pets acting strange. So, with pets, pets can feel and they can see the other side easily. So, if you got a dog that usually is just lounging around the house, not doing nothing, you you have the same people who come over all the time. So your dog knows everybody, don't have a reason to bark or anything like that. And then one day it's kind of like he just gets spooked. If he starts staring in one direction and nobody is over there and he just start barking and everything, or he start whimpering, that's the sign of a haunting. That's the sign that you have something in your house that he or she deems dangerous. So you definitely want to watch out for that. Also, cats too. Cats will do the same thing. So just keep in mind. Just keep in mind of that. Also, they will become restless, not sleeping throughout the night, constantly changing spots or anything like that. And also, plants. If you have in-house plants and for some reason they're always dying, no matter how good you take care of them, they're dying, that's the sign of a haunting. Because what's happening is that spirit or demon, whatever the case may be, is drawing the life out of them plants to manifest. So remember that. Okay. Number 9, people don't like to stay long inside your house. So if you invite people over to your new house and they don't want to stay long, they don't feel comfortable, they feel threatened or anything like that, that's another sign. Because with you being in the house, you're used to the vibe. You're used to the oppression. You're not even gonna look at it any differently. But from the outside in, they will be able to tell. So if you wonder why they never come over to your house, why they're standoffish, that could be a sign of a haunting. Maybe they're sensing something that you just are too spiritually blind to see. Hate to put it that way, but I mean, it is what it is. Okay, so number 10, nightmares. So if you keep having these lucid dreams, these nightmares, and they're reoccurring, I mean, everybody has nightmares, don't get me wrong. Everybody has nightmares. But when it gets to the point that you're having the same dream over and over and over and over, or you're seeing the same thing in your dream over and over, that's a sign of a haunting. Something is influencing that. And you want to be careful. Because believe it or not, a whole lot of people don't believe in lucid dreams. But lucid dreams tell you a lot. They can either reflect on the past, the present, or the future. So keep your eyes open. Trust me, keep your eyes open. Let's see. So those are signs that your house is haunted. Okay. And I hope that has helped somebody. So if you had some crazy stuff going on in your house, I hope that spread some light onto your situation. If not, then I'm here for years and years to come, so we will get to the bottom of it. All right. Now, moving on. So next, what I want to talk to you about is signs of a demonic haunting, because this is very, very important. Okay. So it's similar to a regular haunting, but different. So odd sounds, footsteps, doors opening and closing, whispers, faint screams or moaning, white noise, or electronic interference. Unusual sights, shadows in your peripheral vision, flickering lights and electronics, objects moving places when your back is turned, figures in the dark, etc. Strange feelings, a feeling of being watched, a feeling that something is wrong, also feeling like someone has been in your house or building, inexplicable wafts of cold air, goosebumps, and the feeling of being touched by an invisible hand. So y'all remember the first episode when I told you about my 7-day experience? I was under this state of an oppression. So something really was trying to possess my body. It was trying to take my soul. Not gonna happen. Strange smells, perfume, food smells, sulfur, smoke, and bad odors like rotten meat or dead animals. Now, that can also relate to a regular haunting as well. That's something I left out. Cause I remember when my grandma died. She died in 2005, so this was around 2007, 2008. I went into the kitchen to get some I went to go get something to eat, matter of fact. And as I'm coming back down the hallway, I get a strong whiff of the apple cinnamon glade plugins. Now, back in the early 2000s, this is like when it first came out. So my grandmother used to always burn that in the house. Literally. It always smelled like that. And then when I caught a whiff of this, like I haven't smelled that in years. We didn't even have that in the house. And it was just like that strong smell. I smelled it for like 5 seconds, then it went away. But that's the sign of a haunting. But if it's sulfur, any bad smell, any putrid smell, that's demonic. Remember that. That is demonic. Okay. Now, these are signs that a demonic haunting is progressing. Okay? So, recurrent nightmares on a weekly or nightly basis, depending upon the severity. Phantomania, being held down in the bed, upon waking, discovering unexplained bruises or scratches on your body. A general feeling of discomfort or dread, not being able to fully settle down in one's own home or environment. Negativity between family members and friends increases and leads to arguments, fights, and general discord. A spirit begins to show itself to a member of the family or the environment. Often, these demons center their focus on one particular person, and this can sometimes be a child. They will appear to a child as a nice entity. If and otherwise normal kids become withdrawn and has an imaginary friend, this is a big sign. So if you had an imaginary friend as a kid, that is a big sign. And if you know me personally, every time I'm talking about the paranormal, I always tell y'all this. Never believe anything that you see, because demons will come to you as something nice to get you to accept them into your life. And then once you do, that's when they go in for the kill. Alright, so just remember that. Religious objects will be destroyed or inexplicably lost. For example, crucifix, Bible, rosaries, etc. Entire homes or rooms are ransacked. Though nothing has been taken. Everything has just been rearranged. Strangely. You find writings on the wall or other places in your home or building. Now, keep in mind, all these signs will differ upon the severity of the situation. It might be less, it might be more. Alright, now, next up is signs that it has completely gone beyond a haunting. Okay? Now, remember, negative people and negative situations fuels demonic hauntings. Okay? So that's why I always keep everything positive, because you never know what's out there lurking, waiting for you to open the door. Now, check it. Withdrawal. A person under demonic influence pulls away from his or her family in a social and physical manner. The person becomes withdrawn and won't speak to family members normally. Anger and resentment. Person shows out of nowhere signs of emotional intensity, usually in the form of anger or resentment towards his or her family. Lack of interest in once loved activities. The person will also withdraw themselves from regular activities they once enjoyed. For example, hobbies, academics, family quality time, etc. Right? So, nightmares and night terrors. Now, the nightmares and night terrors will become more frequently, almost nightly basis. Or anytime you close your eyes and take a nap, you'll have a gruesome nightmare. So it's unexplained marks on the body. The person might have scratch marks, bites, or bruises on his or her body in places he or she could not inflict upon themselves. Remember that. Interest in occult or black magic. He or she might have taken a sudden interest in the occult, particularly in necromancy and black magic. Unexplained illness and weakness. He or she might become inexplicably ill and or invisible, weak of body and mind. I said visible. Visibly weak of body and mind. Excuse me. Signs and symptoms may include weight loss, hair loss, change in skin tone, loss of appetite, vomiting, and loss of energy. Now, these are some things that I felt like people really needed to know. So I'm gonna tell you some things that attract demons, right? Murder or suicide, any form of violent deaths, or anything violent of nature that resorts in a death is something that attracts demons. Black magic, multiple deaths, recurrent negativity. So if you're in a place where it's somebody that's always negative and negative things always happen, get away from them, because I guarantee you they have a demon attached to them. Now, things attract demons to people. Okay, dabbing in the occult, performing black magic, a session with death, depression, anxiety, drug use, and abuse. Okay, now I wanted to give y'all the vital information about that, so you will actually know these things, and if something happens, then you can try to help them once you realize what's going on. Now, I have two stories for y'all. I'ma just do two stories. I don't want to drag it out too long or whatever. And these stories are based in North Carolina, our home, North Carolina. Now, check this out. The first story is the naked ghost of Craven Street Bridge. Alright, now this story is based in Asheville. Sorry. So this story is based in Asheville, okay? So check it, here we go. The French Broad Rivers meanders slowly through Asheville on its way to Tennessee, where in the vicinity of Knoxville it joins with the Holston River to form the Tennessee River. The Tennessee flows into the Ohio, which connects to the Mississippi. It's this convergence which gave the river such an important place in the early economy of North Carolina. In the days when rivers were the most important transportation routes across the county, it was the French Broad which connected North Carolina to the west. The French Broad was the early lifeblood of Asheville. And from the settling of the mountains by the Europeans until the late 20th century, the river was lined with logging camps and sawmills, cutting and shipping timber out into the wide world. But apart from its economic importance, the French Broad has also been a source of joy for those who lived in Asheville. Its a slow path through the city and cool, inviting waters made it the perfect place to take a dip on a hot summer day. It's from this that we get the story of one of North Carolina's most unusual ghosts, the naked ghost of the Craven Street Bridge. The story goes that sometime in the 20th century, one evening a group of boys went swimming in the river on a hot summer day. They were out on what was the western edge of the city, just south of where Interstate 240 crosses the river. These were the days where bathing suits didn't exist. Well, they did exist, but it's something that not everybody owned. So the boys stripped down and dove into the river as naked as the day they were born. In a few ways, things were a little bit more relaxed then. So the boys chose a bad time to go swimming. There had been bad storms upriver a few days before, and the usually calm French Broad was flowing more swiftly than usual. The gentle eddies where the river flowed over the boulders lying in the bed had become dangerous undercurrents. They had also ventured out late in the evening. The sun was already heading down as they first swam into the waters. The boys were playing and laughing, not noticing that they were floating further and faster down the river than usual. When they noticed that the light was fading and had drifted down close to the palings of the bridge where Craven Street crossed the French Broad, and where the water was flowing into dangerous rapids around the bridge, they realized they needed to head home. And they realized that one of the party was missing. The boys began a frantic search for their missing friend. They called out his name, dove underwater, and sent one of the number running up for help. As the neighbors came down, a frantic search was organized. Boats were set out on the river and the lanterns lit up the river. So, as the night grew deeper, they sadly realized that chances had run out. They made the choice to call off the search. Boats would be sent out into the daylight to dredge the river, but even that was to no avail. The poor child's body was never found. But soon after the boy disappeared, some of those traveling across the bridge at the time when night fell began to speak of something strange. They said that they saw a naked boy running across the bridge. But when they called out to him, he kept running as if he couldn't hear. And if they catch up to him, he vanished into thin air. Naked ghosts are something of a rarity in American folklore. Although the topic of why ghosts wear clothes has been a surprisingly hotly debated one in the history of religion and the belief in the supernatural, those arguing against the possibility of the spirits of the dead returning to earth has presented multiple variations on the premise that if a ghost is the appearance of a soul on earth, for a ghost to be clothed, that means that the clothing must also be possessed with some immortal element capable of returning to earth. To put it simply, they say that if a ghost isn't barefoot, it means the shoes have soles, which is too many people on both sides of the argument a theological absurdity. The American satirist and short writer Ambrose Bierce lampooned the ideal of clothed spirits in his 1902 essay The Clothing of Ghosts, stating that he would only accept a real spirit who appeared to him while completely nude. We draw the line at clothing, Bierce wrote. The materialized spook appealing to our senses with recognition of his ghostly character must authenticate himself otherwise than by a familiar or remembered habiliments. He must be credentialed by nudity, and that regardless of temperature or may happen to be present. If the clothed or unclothed spirit of Ambrose Bierce ever returns to this earth, we expect that he will at least have a definite answer to the question for us all. If you don't want to wait around for his spirit to return, the naked ghost of Craven Street Bridge is supposedly still seen to this day. When drivers in the early evening hours on the hottest days of the summer are surprised to see a naked boy running alongside their car who disappears before he finishes crossing the bridge. Now, that's dope. I actually went to Asheville. I actually went to Asheville and stayed up there. Pretty cool town. Pretty cool town. But just the overall feeling that you get when you're in Asheville is something serious. It really is something serious. And overall, man, it's just a dope place. It's really a dope place. I enjoyed it. Okay, so my last story I'm gonna tell you is Crybaby Lane. So, Crybaby Lane is a creepy little stretch of deserted grass off Western Boulevard in Raleigh, with a sad and scary story tied to it. The story begins in the middle of the last century, when what's now called Crybaby Lane was the site of a Roman Catholic orphanage. The orphanage was home to a few dozen young boys and girls who were raised by the priest, as had been happening there since the orphanage had been founded in the early 1900s. We can assume the orphans lived as orphans did in those days, going to school, learn a useful trade, and once a week during the summers being taken down to swim in a pool at a nearby pool and park. So, since this was a Catholic home, some of the older boys would be studying for the priesthood. Those children without parents didn't have many options back then. It may not have been a completely happy life, but it was more than it could have been. This all came to a tragic end one night in 1958 when a fire broke out in the orphanage dormitory. The fire spread quickly throughout the building. Now, by the time the sleeping children were aware of the smoke and the heat filling the hallways of their only home, it was too late. When the fire department arrived, the building had already been gutted, reduced to burnt beams and flame-broken bricks. Many children burned to death in the flames. Months after the fire, when after what remained of the burnt orphanage had been torn down and hauled away, the city began receiving complaints from the neighbors that the smell of smoke was still strong in the air, as if the fire was still burning. The smell was so strong that some people would choke when they walked into the field, as if their own lungs was filled up with smoke. This happened even though the new grass had already covered where the building once stood. But the smell of smoke was only part of it. There were also voices. The voices came out of the air, quietly at first, then growing louder. They were the voices of children crying, wailing in fear, sadness, and pain. The screams of the orphaned children who had died in the fire could still be heard. Now, some of the neighbors thought it was just their minds playing tricks on them. They had been there in the night of the fire and seen and heard horrible things. They thought they couldn't get the awful memories out of their heads. But time passed, and the people who had been there that night all died or moved away. But the acrid smell of smoke still lingered, and the cries of the children could still be heard. If you go to find this place yourself, you'll see that most of the houses around the field where the orphanage once stood have been abandoned. The place where the orphanage stood is now an empty field. If you hunt through the grass, you'll be able to find a cornerstone. That's all that's left of the old orphanage. And after you've stood in the field for a few minutes, you'll start to notice that the place has a strange, distinct smell. It's the odor of smoke and burning wood. And if you stay a few minutes more, you'll begin to hear something strange in the air. Awful, unearthly sounds. The cries of children in fear and in pain. Children who are lost, but still never able to leave the only place on earth that they knew as a home. And not many people will stay much longer after that, in that empty field that's become Crybaby Lane. But there's more to the story. I will cover that on another episode. I'm already running a little long here, and I don't want to keep you all night. But hope everybody has had a good night. I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also share it with your family. Share it with everybody who believe in the paranormal or who is slightly interested in the paranormal. Um, and as I said before, if you would like for your story to be read, if you have any questions for me, you can submit all of those to ParanormalLegendsSociety@gmail.com. I repeat, that's ParanormalLegendsSociety@gmail.com. I appreciate everybody who's listening. And until next time, see you Wednesday. Have a good night.